I would imagine by the way most people greet me when I show up here on Sunday morning that you'd like to hear a little bit about how Barbara's doing. Just guessing. So rather than me giving you words around that, why don't you see for yourself?
You're going to make me cry. Hey, is there anybody behind me? Yes. No, it's okay. I just need one. Okay. So turn around and go back? Yes. Okay.
She is a clear, powerful teacher in everything that she does. I'm feeling complete, but I'm not going to stop there. I want to talk about consciousness today. Barbara, as always, is constantly projecting things to me to help me see things more clearly. I have no idea whether she's thinking about that or not, but it's happening nonetheless, because I'm watching what she's going through and creating in my mind a context about what that is. And so I want to talk about consciousness, and I'm going to play the professor at the beginning here and then get to some deeper stuff. But the starting point on this conversation is we talk about consciousness here a lot. Yet I think if we were to ask each person here what consciousness is, I'd get a ton of different answers. In fact, even the whole field of psychology can't agree on what consciousness is. But yet we know it's there. We absolutely do, and it's not a particularly new idea. In fact, it began with, at least in the Eastern world, the Western world. I have no idea about the Eastern world and how many thousands of years they've understood it. But in the Eastern world, someone that presented it as an idea was René Descartes. And what he said was, I think, therefore I am. Profound idea in one sense, but in another sense, it just seems logical. But of course, so gravity seems logical to us until Newton got hit on the head with an apple, and it got defined, and we gave it a name, and we began to understand it. This consciousness thing Descartes says we are conscious, and that's what makes us real. Before that, and probably still today in most lives, people think they're real because they have a physical presence, they have a body. That makes them real. But what happens when that body doesn't have life in it anymore? Does that mean that the person is gone forever? I don't think so. I think there's something deeper going on, more lasting going on. This idea of being able to be self-aware began as a philosophical concept. But then it, of course, grew into psychology, as many philosophical concepts do, and became the work of the originators of that field. One of them, William James, who was the father of American psychology, said consciousness is like a stream, unbroken and continuous despite constant shifts and changes, saying that consciousness, even if we can't quite understand what it is, we know that it's a constant thing. That's why you hear the term stream of consciousness. That comes from what James said. And while I've got his picture up there, I would also like you to know that he lived during the time of Ernest Holmes. and probably before Ernest, but was alive when Ernest began the work of the science of mind. And when he heard about it, he actually had a thought about it. He said that the science of mind is the religion of I'll get it in a second, of healthy thinking. That's what it is. It's the religion of healthy thinking. So James really got that what we were looking at was working on consciousness in an effective and powerful way, and brought that into the world. Now, one of his predecessors, someone who came before him was Freud, and Freud came. You can tell this guy was a sweetheart. Huh? And this quote will kind of fit the look he's given you. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. It's true. It's not pleasant, but it's true. And what he's referring to in his piece of the puzzle on consciousness was that he gave the idea of the conscious mind and what he called the unconscious mind. We don't call it that. We call it the subjective mind or the subconscious mind. And the idea that those are two very different things. Even though they interact, they're very different. And that's an important part of understanding how consciousness works. Because if we think that what we're thinking at any particular moment is the only thing that's driving our life, we are missing the biggest part of what's going on. So I want to play with that idea of the conscious and the, I'm going to call it the subjective mind for a moment. The conscious mind, this image came to me one day, that the conscious mind is sort of like a lovely little retail shop, a place you'd like to go, a place that has something that it exchanges in the world, and there's probably a very nice person behind the counter that's willing to assist you in whatever it is that you've come in for on any particular day. And people come and go from this shop on a regular basis. Behind the shop, even though nobody ever notices, is a massive warehouse of information. Incredible amounts of information stored away. And what that is the information on every experience that happened with every person that ever walked in that little shop. That information does not go away. So from the time you were a child, a baby, a newborn, you started collecting data. And where does it get stored? It gets stored in your subjective mind. It gets stored in a place where everything is kept. All this information. Mostly information you're never going to seek again, but it's there. And under certain situations like hypnosis, you can recall pretty much anything because it's all there. And it's impacting you every single moment. There's information in there, in that categorized, put away, filed away, boxed away place that is completely accessible. Now, the way we normally access it is by having an experience that reminds us of something, that connects to that somehow, to something that once happened, and we remember that experience. Or it could be that someone asks us a question, and an answer pops out so quickly we didn't have time to think about it. What we would be thinking about is with our conscious mind, that part that is active and doing stuff all the time. That's your conscious mind. But this subjective mind, the subconscious mind, or what Freud called the unconscious mind, is still very active. It's going to have that information available for you to remember, or even for it to impact how our life is being expressed, thusly how we are experiencing life. Because I still believe that everything that we express into life creates an experience back to us. And that's that circle that just goes on and on and on and never ends. We are constantly in this exchange of energy with life. Those that study cellular biology, like Bruce Lipton, brilliant teacher, says that the whole idea of interacting with life exists even at a cellular level, where The cell is constantly being aware of its environment and figuring out how to adapt to its environment so that if some strange substance comes up, it has to decide, is that nourishment that I should bring into my cell, myself, or is it something that I should close off to because it would be toxic or dangerous in some way? Those are the conscious thoughts that a cell, a simple living cell, is having all the time. And if it's having those kind of experiences, so are we. We are interacting with our environment all the time. And we go back into the data that we have to figure out what to do about it, how to deal with it. And then there are those things that never really happen because what we've learned in the studying of the subjective mind is that it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. By not knowing the difference, it stores it all away as though it's real. So if you have a thought, if you have a fear, if you have a concern, all that gets stored away in your subjective mind. And it doesn't just go away. Now, I think what some people think that we should do is that we should vigilantly go into our subjective thoughts and root out the stuff we don't like. Folks, that's not going to happen. You can't get to it all. You can't even know what it is until you're faced with something that brings it forward. So this is what's going on all the time, is this massive amount of information that we have at our beck and call that we don't think about. We don't imagine it as being that important to us, yet it's influencing every single thing that we do. So that's kind of the idea that I wanted to give you about consciousness. And the fact that it isn't a simple little thing. It isn't something that we can just manipulate at will. It's bigger than that. We are more powerful than that, and we have the ability to create our life out of that. But we are never victim to it. It's all there for a purpose. And you move into a teaching like this, that's not just our teaching, it's any way of looking at how the world works. All of us, if asked, do we want to have a pleasant, wonderful, easy, fun life? We all go, yeah, of course I do. Because at the conscious level, that's the thing that we seek. That's what everybody says they want. That's what you watch on TV. Although, if you go to the movies, every movie gives you a challenge. Can you imagine going to a movie and there was no challenge? There was nothing to overcome? There was nothing to rise above? What a boring movie that would be. That doesn't do anything. Same is true for life. Life is filled with opportunities to learn who we are. We don't do that by having everything be sweetness and light. Life is challenging. Relationships don't all work out. Anybody here have every relationship work out the way they imagined it would? Of course not. That doesn't make the relationship bad. It doesn't make that relationship wrong. Everybody wants to have a lot of money, right? Does that mean people who don't have a lot of money are bad people? No. Does it mean they're stupid people? No. It means that it's in their consciousness to experience life from that place of not having those resources. That does not make them wrong. I learned that when I worked in public housing. I don't know if you knew that. I actually helped public housing residents build food gardens. It was a lovely thing that came out of the Hunger Project, and the organization I worked for was called End World Hunger. And what they decided we would do as an organization was go into public housing, invite the residents to have garden plots that were, they were 16 feet long and no, they weren't. They were 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. And we taught people how to do what's called square foot gardening. But what really came out of that was much more powerful for me was to work with all of those wonderful people to help them discover how to work together in a better way, because we never allowed them to have fences around their gardens. Their gardens were right out in the open. And all those kids that would go steal tomatoes so they could have food fights out in the middle of the projects was everyone's concern. But we overcame that. because the residents let all of the neighbors know why they were doing this, that this was food for them and food to share with their neighbors. And there was always more than enough food. So the kids all learned, mess with the garden. And without any security, all of the gardens that we had in cities across the United States, we had them in Miami, in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, in Seattle, Atlanta. We had them all over the place. Nobody had a problem with security. Their gardens were fine because they learned how to communicate in a way that was effective. That was a conscious act on their part to let go of the fear that things wouldn't work out and have them work out. And in our lives, we have that opportunity, but it's not always, I'm discovering, about having things work out the way we think we'd like them to work out. It's bigger than that. It's more important than that. It's more meaningful than that. That's a nice piece of it. But that's not all it is. Someone was sharing with me, and I don't have permission to say who it is, but it's a generic enough story that I'm going to talk about it anyway. Someone had come to Barbara for counseling, and the person said to them, I've done my treatment work. I've done all the things you said to do, and yet I have this physical condition to deal with. It was cancer. And they're going, what did I do wrong? Well, fact is, you didn't do anything wrong. And the treatment that was being recommended was chemotherapy. And Barbara's comment to this person in a loving and absolutely nurturing way is, it's just chemo. And what I was told is that in that moment, that the fear, that the anxiety and all of that had built up around this thing of having cancer and having to do chemo, as though it was this awful burden, was suddenly lifted off. And this person found in them the ability to find joy in receiving chemotherapy. Brilliant. Shifting the entire experience to one of life, because the road they were looking at with all that angst was a road to death. And trust me, they are very much alive today because they shifted how they looked at that. Now, what I've heard over and over again from people that have had those kinds of serious conditions in their lives say with absolute clarity that it was a blessing. Now, those of us that haven't had those things happen have a hard time imagining how that could possibly be a blessing. But what I want you to know today, that in the most amazing way, Barbara's stroke has been a blessing in her life and in my life, because it has opened us up to again see how powerful we are. So to go back to this idea of the little shop and the big warehouse and all that's in the warehouse, some of the stuff in the warehouse we don't want, but it's there for a reason. It isn't a mistake. It isn't a flaw. It isn't something wrong. It isn't something evil. It's simply information that leads to outcomes in our lives. Not everything, but some things. And the big one that has been revealed in Barbara came from the last time she saw her primary care physician, pre-stroke. She had a blood pressure problem, and we knew it, and we didn't know why. We had no idea that her artery in her neck was closing off, and that her body was doing everything it could to push blood through to her brain. We didn't know that. She hadn't gone in for those kinds of tests. She'd been in the hospital for high blood pressure in the emergency room, and they watched her and sent her home. I don't blame them for that. There's no blaming going on here. This is Barbara's path. But her doctor that day in the office asked her if she was afraid to die. And she said, not at all. I'm afraid to live impaired. So what is she doing right now? She's learning how to live impaired and to overcome that. And she is overcoming it. And she'll be back here, and it won't be long. And she's not ready to stand here and do this, but she's ready to be back in the room because she misses all of you dearly. And she loves you so much. And she will be back. And this is not an end game that's going on with us. This is just where we are today. And we're working through it. And frankly, it's getting easier. One reason is because we have so many people that are helping in meaningful ways. And I can point some of them out in the room right now. Kate Wagner, Ellen Vale, Devon Embler. Amanda came and sat with Barbara this morning, 5:30 till 8 when Margaret came, so I could come over here and work. She worked late last night, but she was up and over at our house at 5:30 to sit with Barbara. People are stepping in and helping. We have this amazing team. I was thinking about making an official service team here, a service circle here at the center, but then we'd have to have meetings and do all the, no, I'm kidding. So it's just that's a real reflection of Barbara's consciousness as well, that people love her enough to give immense amount of time and talent and energy to her recovery. It's phenomenal. It's awe-inspiring. I must have said thank you 100,000 times to people because people are constantly helping. And it's making a difference. And her recovery is on track, and she's doing what she needs to do. You saw that. I think we're tired of looking at the subjective mind. Look at something more ethereal. So this idea that I'm going with here of consciousness and consequences is too often, I believe, we think that when we have difficult consequences, that somehow our consciousness was off. I absolutely disagree today. I haven't always thought that. But where I am right now is that our consciousness is perfect. Our path is perfect. And the experiences that arise out of our consciousness are perfect experiences. They're God experiences. They're divine. Even the hard ones. Maybe especially the hard ones. Because what we find is that when we're clear, even in the midst of turmoil or struggle or challenge, God's right there. Not a being, but an essence. A creative essence of the universe is right in the midst of it. So that's what I want to ask you today. I'm sure that if I had a minute with each of you, you could tell me about something you're not pleased with in your life. That's the way life works. And chances are most of us are kind of tolerating them. I'll give you a little funny one that's going on with me. You know, I'm talking about fears and could something go wrong. Every single Sunday, when I'm sitting there and the bowls are finishing up and I'm getting ready to stand and come up here, I always ask myself, I wonder if the tingsas are there. Now, this is not an invitation for somebody to hide the tingsas. But it comes up all the time. Are they there? And I look over the little ledge there and go, oh, there they are. How many thousands of things do we have in our lives like that? Where we have this little, oh, is it going to work? Is it going to turn out okay? Are we going to be all right? What's going on? And we have those things going on in our lives. And they're growing in our subjective mind. And some of them are going to outpicture. When they do, don't be surprised. Recognize that you allowed that to happen. And you can go, well, I wasn't thinking about that at all, but yeah, it's still got to be in there somewhere. And it's not wrong. It's not bad. It's simply the way life is. So when it shows up, what are you going to do? You're going to lament that all you now want now is for it to go away, because that's what we do. But there's a bigger game to play. What's in there for me to get from this? I am absolutely certain that my life is unfolding right now based on my consciousness. You know, I waited years for Barbara to say okay to start this center. And I've been a big part of it. It's true. But it's never been on my shoulders like it's been on hers. It's my time to lead. It's my time to do that work. And it's her time to heal. So she's got hers to do, and I've got mine to do. And I'm going to be here for you. That's my plan. I had a number of people, one in particular, one woman that used to come here. She was actually a practitioner. I won't mention that her name is Nina Anin. And she's the oracle of Asheville. And she gets these things, this information, and she wants to tell me when it's about me, and I appreciate that. And she was working me hard to say that I had work out in the world to do. And I was working on that. I was going to leave this all to Barbara and go off and do some more stuff. I wanted to bring science of mind to the secular world. It's a great plan. But when this happened, this stroke happened, it was no longer mine to do. And I had not talked to Nina since Barbara had her stroke. And Nina called me yesterday. And I went, oh God, I got to tell her. And she already knew about Barbara. But she wanted to know what's going on with me. And I said, my life right now is about supporting my wife's recovery and taking care of this community. And Nina, who had been pushing pretty hard, said, good for you. And it felt so good to just be supported and let it be my choice to do this. It is mine to do. It's even mine to deal with QuickBooks. I was concerned that I scared Rick the other day when I started cursing at Barbara's computer screen. But everything that I needed to get done got done. And we're good. So I'm learning. I'm learning patience at a new mystical level. And my life is working. And I have no regrets. I have another story I want to share with you. From 1969, I was 16 years old, and my mom brought me and my 3 siblings during the summer up here to Asheville. We lived in Miami. That's where we grew up. It was only the second time I'd come. I came when I was 3. Don't remember that one. But when I was 16, we came up, and in 1969, can you imagine what we did? We went and visited all the relatives. People that I had never seen before, and most of which I have never seen since. Going into houses that just, the old frame houses that you still see around Asheville, those kinds of places we went and visited. And we would sit and visit with people, and they would serve us some kind of goodie, and there were 4 kids. We were always starving. And then we would move on to the next one, and we did this for a good week, going around and seeing people. I only remember one. And it was amazing how it influenced me then and continues to. It was a woman, and I don't remember, I think probably a cousin. And it was this woman who lived in a house with her mother. Her mother was in a comatose state. And her daughter, my mom's cousin, I guess my cousin too, her whole life was about caring for this woman who was in a coma, who was unconscious, who could never say, I love you, or look into her eyes. It was really just this body in a bed that was still alive, but unable to communicate directly with, at least in normal functioning as we imagine between humans. This had been going on for close to 20 years. I was just amazed, befuddled that someone would dedicate their mother, I get it, I know, but their mother, for all those years, would wash her and bathe her and feed her and turn her and love her unconditionally. Nothing coming back for all that time, based on the memory of their relationship from all those years before. So she's come to mind recently. Not that I can really create some parallel between what she was doing and what I'm doing, because Barbara tells me she loves me every day. I swear we hug and kiss more than we ever have. And we tease and we laugh and we enjoy one another's company. We haven't lost any of that. And I think about this woman that did it anyway, without all of that. Figuring, God, if she could do that, I can do this. So even on the hard days, the days when I'm not sure I can make it through, she's a good memory for me that I can get through and I can do what I need to do, and that because I can, I'm stronger. So here's the deal. I've probably talked longer than I planned. I want to invite you to look at the things you don't like about your life and find God in them. They're gifts. As hard as they may seem at times, they're gifts. That relative that you do not want to talk to is a gift in your life. That person's teaching you forgiveness. The things that aren't working, that you struggle with, are showing you you're strong and that you can do anything you set your mind to. And today I stand before you stronger and clearer than I have ever been, and grateful for my life, the life of my beloved, and for your life. Let's see Barbara again. Ah, stairs. You go, girl. You go, girl. The last thing you need to know, second to last thing, is that Barbara came home on Thursday. And I will not be able to keep her there very long, so don't think it's going to be very long before we're both here. Thank you all. We love you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Waterhouse.
And I'm John Waterhouse. Thank you for watching this message today.
Through our website, cslasheville.org, we have over 1,000 messages, classes, and New Thought books, all to download at no charge to anyone.
Producing this incredibly valuable collection of ideas is really making a difference in the world. It's changing lives everywhere.
Please go to our website, cslasheville.org, and click the Donate button. You can support this life-changing ministry, and when you do, we'll send you a note of thanks and also put you on our daily prayers.
By doing this, you're helping to raise the consciousness of people across the entire globe. We're changing lives together, those lives that are being more prosperous, more healthy, and more joyous. Thank you for being a part of this important work and supporting what we do here at CSL Asheville.
Thank you.